fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
Canadian Sport Fishing is brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Yamaha, conquer outdoors. Dickies, quality workwear since 1922. Blue Cam, a cleaner running engine for a cleaner environment.
You know, I love to fish so much that on some days, if the weather's okay and I have a few hours, even if they're calling maybe for rain or a little bit of wind, I decide to go out to a local waterway, and sometimes I'm not really sure what I'm going to catch. It's not like a planned bass trip or a walleye trip or a trout trip, or even fishing with other people. So on this day, I decided to take my pups in a variety of rods, about 5 or 6 rods, a whole bunch of gear, because I'm not sure what I'm going to encounter, and to head out to one of my favorite fishing spots. And what I'm going to be doing is trying to fish a little bit shallow and then go a little bit deeper and get a variety of fish. You know, sometimes it's not about targeting big fish. It's just about going out there and having some fun. You know, it was nice because I saw this guy follow. He was laying right on the bottom. He came up, and usually when you twitch it faster, they come after it. But this guy, I slowed it down, and he just came up and nipped it. And he got stung by that Rapala. So I want to make sure that he's fought out before I try to grab him, because I can't get him in the net. They're too long. Then they get their snout caught, and then you got issues. It looks just like a snake. I find that number 11 Rapala, that's the original one. I don't know if it's the way the 3 hooks are on there. It's like one of the best lures to use to hook these guys. You can see that long snout. You know, it was so neat. Normally when you get a Garr Pike to follow, and this guy was about maybe 6 inches off the bottom, you got to work it quicker. So I could see him turning. I got a response. He was coming up, and the closer he got to it, I started twitching it a little bit more. Normally you got to speed up to get it to hit. But in this case, I slowed it down, and he came up and just snipped it. Now, normally, you know, I would net a fish, but these guys are so long. I don't know if he's going to throw the hook. Got to be so careful. I've been tagged on my collar when they head shake. And look, he's popped one hook out. Oh, man, I'm glad he's not thrashing around. Yeah, when you get a big one, this isn't a huge one by any means, but when they shake their head like that, careful, River, I don't want you to get hooked. If they slip out of your hands, it's so easy to get the hooks in. You look at, isn't that a gorgeous creature? I mean, I've got my left hand clamped right down. You know, if you've never held a Garr Pike, these scales are like armor plating. This may be a small fish, but I gotta tell you what, you gotta respect them. Look, from him shaking, even while I've had him here in the boat, just the one hook was in there. Look at, can you? He's like, I'm holding a snake. He's saying, no, let me go. You can see those teeth. They're small, but they're like tacky sharp, like a pincushion, lower and top jaw. So when they want to grab a fish, no problem. The one thing I can say about Garr is that they are very hardy. So look, I had that guy out. I can't hold him. There he goes. They are so slick. You know, I can't tell you enough how comfortable this vigorous mat material is. It's amazing because I do a lot of kneeling down, especially with fish like that, because you can't really stand up. You know, it actually helps to put them on the actual spike. These are spike mats, so they're very soft, very nice on my knees. I'm very fortunate today because as soon as I went into the shallow waters, I spotted some Garr Pike activity. Now, Garr Pike is not normally a fish that I fish for or that other people that I know of fish for. Most of the time, they're caught by coincidence. So in this case, what I wanted to do was see if I could actually get one on, because they're really tough to hook sometimes because they have such a long, bony snout. And when they hit and you set the hook, a lot of times they come jumping out of the water and you lose them. So I think they get together in about June, like late spring, early summer to spawn. And sometimes you find them in bays and in quiet water areas in high numbers. Sometimes I've seen them on the surface, but on this particular day, they were subsurface and some of them very close to the bottom. So I tried for them, and you know what? I started hooking up. Look at nice and long. This was interesting because normally I sight cast to these guys, but they kind of moved off the shoreline. So I tried just casting out in the current rip, and look at this guy hit. I felt a tap, and it kind of felt like any other fish. Look at how wide those fins are, the anal ones. It looks like a butterfly with those spots on them. That's what it reminds me of, like a monarch. Here, if he starts thrashing, we don't let go of him. He's kind of wrapped up in the line. He's got one hook just on the edge of the mouth. I just want to make sure if he does something that my hand isn't, because you know, kind of like a snake, if they start shaking their head, you know, you can get caught with the hook. Now, nice long snout all the way down, and they must have really good eyesight. I've had him out of the water a little bit to get the hooks out, but you're going to see how fast he's going to take off. I'm going to hold him for a split second, if I even can. I probably can't, because they have so much energy. Look at beautiful long body. I can see he's kind of flexed. Look at beautiful release. Amazing. You know what I find? I've really been experimenting with lures over the last 30 years. When I see Garr Pike in a certain spot, they don't like a lure that has too much action, and they don't like it moving too fast. And for some reason, the original Rapala has that nice work from side to side. I think the fact that it rises up a little bit gets them interested in it, because I think Garr Pike don't feed going down, you know, like walleye or some other species of fish. They definitely feed near the surface, because I've seen them with their beaks out of the water and bait fish flying all over the place, and they'll actually grab a bait fish.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Cable's Eyewear Retainer. Lightweight, comfortable, adjustable, and waterproof.
While I was looking for those Garr Pike, I couldn't help notice that I could see smallmouth bass every once in a while just appear off in the distance, and also bait fish schools just off the shoreline. So once I had my fun with trying to chase those Garr Pike and getting them to strike, and even catching a couple, I switched to fishing for smallmouth bass. The only problem is that the weather really moved in, started to get overcast, and then the wind started to pick up. And I mean, they really started to pick up. So what I started with was using a twitch bait and casting the twitch bait along the shoreline. You know, I find using a twitch bait very productive if you're fishing in water anywhere from 5 to 10 feet. I believe one of the reasons why twitch baits work so well, you can control the depth of the lure, and when the water starts to get churned up, especially from strong wind and waves, smallmouth bass actually turn on. And their senses are so tuned in that if anything flashes or swims erratically, they're drawn to it and they usually explode on it. So that's one of the times when you get some of the strongest hits. Have you ever fished in tough conditions? You know, where you start off and it's a nice day, and then all of a sudden the wind picks up and it starts to go a little bit crazy. This guy nailed this ripstop. Gonna lift him up out of the water. Come on, you beautiful fish. And he got what I call tagged. The wind is so strong right now. See if he does a tail flap. I thought he'd just start flapping. I've got the anchor mode on with the motor guide. If I didn't, we'd be blowing and doing like donuts down the shoreline. So we gotta have about a 40-mile-an-hour wind. We had whitecaps come along the shore. So the only way I can fish it efficiently is to put the anchor mode on the XI5 and then just pepper an area and then move up a bit. So this guy I'm just gonna throw back. You ever see a flying fish? Watch. It's a flying fish in fresh water. Little guy, and he's gone. When it comes to twitch baits, you've got so many different models, styles on the market. I've really had good luck over the last 30 years or over, ever since twitch baits have come on the market, with a lot of the Rapala series. This is their new ripstop right here. You can see it's got that little tail action. And this is the original. You know, I used to twitch lures before twitch baits ever came on the market. So the original number 7 Rapala is an amazing lure that you can fish at any depth. The biggest difference between the two is the ripstop is neutral buoyancy. So when you're twitching it and you stop, it stays there. It will eventually come up slowly, but it literally hangs in one spot. The floating Rapala is ideal if you're fishing over weeds or you're fishing in really shallow water, structure, or along the shorelines, because as soon as you stop twitching it, it has a pretty fast rise ratio. And sometimes you want that so you don't get caught up. You know, there are different ways of fishing twitch bait or slash baits, but I find that the more the water is stirred up, the more aggressive I twitch. If I'm fishing clear water conditions, I'll use a smaller twitch bait, something around, I'm gonna say 10 centimeters, you know, which is about 4.5 inches long. And I use something that's very light or natural color. I use a lot of ghost color, which is almost like a pearl color, and also the silvers with the black back. I don't go with the bright fluorescent colors. And in between my twitches, I do a lot of pausing, because a lot of times I find that in clear water, the fish are a little bit more suspicious. So they'll come in and you'll see them in the distance, or they'll follow sometimes 4 or 5 feet behind. And that's where you do a couple of twitches and pause, a couple of twitches and pause. And then if the fish shows interest, you twitch a little bit faster, but you don't advance the lure a lot farther ahead because they don't want to chase it. Sometimes they hit it, sometimes they turn away. I find that the opposite is true when you have a lot of commotion on the surface and things are stirred up. I think the smallmouth gets so excited when they see a flash, so the faster you twitch it, the more consistently that lure is going left and right and away from them, it just turns them on, they speed up and there's no follows, they just smack it. Oh, yes, he's on. Man, that fish hit and it came, oh, right on the surface, came right at me. He's having a hard time fighting with this wind. Come on up, a little closer so I can lift you up. You know, this is kind of nice. We're doing multi-species today. So we're gonna try everything from running jigs on the bottom to these twitch baits. And you know, when it comes to summertime in a lot of the Great Lakes, you can get a mix. You can get walleye, you can get freshwater drum, you can get Garr Pike, which are one of my favorite because it's such a novelty fish, and of course smallmouth like this one. This guy's almost ready to come in. They're so much fun to get, like on medium action gear. Okay, I'm not gonna reel any more line, and I'm gonna try just lifting this guy in. You know, these ripstops have really sharp hooks. They're VMC hooks, so they really tag on well. And usually when a smallmouth jumps, you know, it'll if he hasn't been hooked by the other hooks, he'll hook himself. So this is the one that's 12 centimeters long, and it's ideal when you're fishing bigger waters. And I find that the bigger ripstop actually works better than the smaller ones in the middle of the day. Look at those nice stripes. He's like a tiger. Gorgeous smallmouth, look at, with that sun on him. Beautiful fish. Smallmouth bass have to be one of the strongest fighting fish in fresh water, especially given their size. You know, you can get a 1-pound smallmouth that sometimes will jump 4 or 5 times out of the water. Largemouth bass tend to be a little bit shallower, but smallmouth, they have a lot of courage. So if you're using lures with a very erratic action, you can really get them to strike. River, I got my work cut out for me, River. I don't want it to go into that electric. That's one thing when you have the anchor mode on, that electric is spinning around, so you got to be careful your line doesn't go around it when you're fighting a fish. Nice head shakes. It's a good idea when you're using a minnow imitating lure with 3 trebles. Let that fish fight out before you try flipping it in the boat and handling it. If it gets off, it's okay. It's only got 1 hook, I think, in him, which is perfect. Just trying to get the shaft of the hook, very important, not the actual hook itself, because you can bend it. Let me hold him up. Can you see the wind fluttering on my shirt? Man, it is windy. Look at, isn't that a beautiful sight? I can't suspend him because those waves are pretty big. I'm just gonna let him go, and he should go down. Look at, straight down to the bottom. Now, you know, even though I've had good luck with the smallmouth with the ripstop, this is that original Rapala, the same one that I like to use for the Garr Pike, and it has no sound chamber, so it's I think made out of some kind of balsa wood. This one is called the Bleeding Lip series because the lip is that red color, and this is classic baitfish color. It's got black back, a little bit of like greenish gold, and then it's got that nice silver side. because there's no snap on the original Rapala, I had to use a knot that actually allows the lure to move back and forth. So if you take a close look at this Rapala where the eye is, you'll see that there's a loose knot. I call it the non-slip loose knot. It's kind of like a Rapala knot. And you can see that I've left over about a 1/4 to 1/2 inch tag of my braided line. Because if that knot is going to slip, I don't want it to come undone. Smallmouth bass can really vary in color. I have caught smallmouth bass, for example, out of the Detroit River or Lake St. Clair, where they're almost a milky white color. So they take on the color of the water around them. On the flip side, I've caught smallmouth bass from clear water lakes, where there's a lack of vegetation and a lot of dark rocks, and they are like bronze back with brilliant stripes along the side. And they tend to be very aggressive. I've caught them in river systems where the water goes anywhere from 5 to 15 feet deep and there's a mix of rocks and weeds, and they're a combination of color. They've got like a dark green or brown back, some of them a little bit of black on the belly, and just green on the sides. You know what? It doesn't matter what color they are. They are pugnacious. They've got an attitude. So when they hit something, whether it's a topwater, a suspending bait like a twitch bait, a crankbait, or even a jig on the bottom like a tube, when you hook one, you know it. And a lot of times they head straight for the surface, jump out of the water, throw the bait out, and say bye-bye. You know, I'm so thankful with these windy conditions that I can still work my electronics. So I've got my Motor Guide XI5 that I'm actually going into the wind and working the shoreline, but also my Dragonfly Raymarine unit that's attached to the bottom of my electric. So right now it's reading about 14, 15 feet. You can see that we're right on the break. So what I'm trying to do is stay on that 15-foot break, and I'm casting into about 4 or 5 feet of water. You know, I've got the remote in my hand. I'm not using a foot control, and I prefer that so I can walk around. And it's kind of hard, you know, keeping your eye on the direction that you're going in, watching the dragonfly, and seeing where you're casting and getting ready for a hit. You know, even under these conditions, I've been using a bait caster, but a spinning outfit is really, really handy, especially when you're casting some of these lighter baits into the wind. Part of my strategy is to try to cast, obviously, 3/4 with the wind or with the wind so I can get my best cast. But I find that a light action rod, like the one I'm using here, this is a 2-piece, it's an R-type spinning outfit. Because it's got a soft tip, when you get a hit with the twitch baits, you actually get a better hook set because there's about a 1-second delay. You know, when you set the hook, the rod bends a bit and then the hook goes into the fish. I don't know if it's going to be any easier flipping it into the boat from here. That was nice. You know what? I'm going to have a seat, probably about 1.5 pounds. Respectable fish, you know, especially with these conditions when it's so rough, man, and windy. So I'm just going to pop him in over the side. All righty, Mr. Bass, I'm not going to hold you long. And look, these guys are going straight to the bottom. They're not going horizontal. These fish are hitting even close to the boat. You know, I'll be doing the last 4 or 5 twitches, and a lot of times that's when you're not concentrating, and then it's just you go to twitch again and the fish is already on, like this one. Oh, he almost threw the hook. I think he's gonna get off. I don't know if I can lift this guy in. He threw the main hook. I'm gonna try to get him in the boat. Wow, that was amazing. He had the center hook in his mouth, so that's the hook that he had in his mouth right there. And then he jumped, head shook, and then just this hook just tagged him onto the gill. So I'm amazed. There's been situations where I've had a smallmouth hook by the front hook. It'll make a jump through the air, and then the next thing I see the back hook is in its mouth. So how the heck can it switch the position from the hooks? But they can do that when they jump. Now this guy's got more stripes. Look at, isn't that beautiful? You know, the clouds started to move in, and we might even get some rain. In a way, it's nice because I think these fish will become even more active. And you switch hands. He's probably going to do the flap in the wind. Get the line off him. Beautiful smallmouth. And there he goes. Now, I've been messing around with these Rapalas. This is one that's a little bit longer, but it's still the original floating. And I've actually gone So this is like a smelt finish. So you can see it's got that really realistic color on the side. If you want a real challenge when it comes to fishing, you know, fresh water, pick a day where the winds are going to be 40 miles an hour. Man, oh man, I'll tell you, you know, when we're shooting television shows, we got to be conscious of the wind on our back and not on the microphone. And then we also have to try to cast, you know, as a fisherman, and try to maximize our presentation. When it is windy, you throw all the rules out the window. It's a survival game. Warm weather or cold weather, calm or windy, I love it all. You know what? If you learn how to fish in adverse conditions, I think you become a better fisherman. So you get used to it, and a lot of times, when the weather gets bad, the fish actually turn on, especially smallmouth. So no matter what the weather, if you've got a chance to fish, go out there and catch them. You know, when the wind gets bad, you just gotta keep at it, you know, and just keep plugging away. If we didn't have an electric trolling motor, I don't think we'd be able to fish. We'd have to drop an anchor all the time. It's another nice smallmouth. I love the way smallmouth fight. This guy jumped about 5-6 times, and he might even throw the hook. No, he's okay. He's got that center hook. He had it in his mouth. I really like these pliers. See, they got a bit of a curve. They're from Rapala, which kind of makes it easier to unhook the fish. Gonna put that down. Look it. Isn't that a picture-perfect smallmouth? Come on, they're beautiful. You know, they're part of the sunfish family, the same as the pumpkin seed, bluegill, and largemouth bass. And you can see a little bit of resemblance, not in size, but you can see those nice lines that they have, kind of like a pumpkin seed, and the stripes kind of like on a bluegill. Oh, at least I'm downwind with my body. Man, look at those bars. Beautiful. So you can take off here. Come on, right down to the bottom.
Canadian Sport Fishing has been brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Yamaha, conquer outdoors. Dickies, quality workwear since 1922. Blue Cam, a cleaner running engine for a cleaner environment.
But you know, I get a lot of questions asked, especially on Ask Italo and our YouTube channel, of guys that see Garr Pike, and you know, we're visually casting to them today. They can't hook them, and when they hook them, they come off. And my response is, use an original number 11 Rapala. That's what this is. So this is one of the oldest, probably the oldest Rapala. It's the original one that Lori Rapala carved, you know, from wood, and he used chocolate foil wrapper to do the actual finish. This is just a production one now. But it's a combination of how big these little trebles are and where they're located on the actual Rapala.